What's up, YouTube? This is Naxxion back with another Justice Hunter's deck profile, and today I'm doing something a little different with K9 Fiendsmith. Now, I'm still experimenting to see what I'll be playing for the regional, if I can attend that. But with the arrival of the K9 cards and me being such an Xyz fan, I've been looking around and play testing other variants. You have the Crystron, the Cyber Dragon, and I absolutely refuse to play Vanquish Soul. And one came to mind was the Fiendsmith. I've seen a few videos on it, but honestly, it plays pretty well. It's probably not the best deck in the room, but I do enjoy it because I think the Fiendsmith cards actually do help this deck out quite a bit. So I'll get right into it. The main deck count is 42 cards. Starting off, we play 3 copies of Azuna. The reason why you want to play this deck in the first place, card is nuts, especially in a more pure variant, because you just get to do way more with the card and play more into the strengths of the card. I also play 2 copies of K9 Lupus. Because this is more heavy towards the K9 stuff, I like it. Also, Lupus can in hand act as a way to extend. And if you get the one of that's just out, your deck starts to struggle with rotation, especially since your deck already can't grind naturally because you have no way of getting your resources back. So I play 2 of that. I also play 3 Jolkul. This card's nuts. As well as 3 Lantern. These cards are actually really good. They remind me of the Kashtira cards, where when they hit the board, they get immediate value, and you can go into cool stuff. The Lantern is basically a +2. If used correctly. Jolkul is just free extension, and honestly, when I was doing online testing months ago, one thing I kept running into was, well, I have to keep normal summoning a lot, but actually, at least in testing, I haven't really come with the issue of, oh, they're just bricks in hand. No, I typically am able to make the good use of these cards, but that is the main deck count for the K9s right there. Then we move on to the aforementioned Fiendsmith, because we still have it at full power. And we have 3 Engraver, 1 Lacrima, and 1 Lurie. The idea with the deck is that because K9 is not one card combo, Fiendsmith activates, tricks your opponent into playing stuff, and then your K9 cards can benefit off that. And if not, Caesar is still insanely strong. Even though Fiendsmith is a bit power crept, your deck can play these cards, and even though you could potentially brick with playing 2 more normal summons when sometimes you have to, I don't really find an issue with that. And the K9 cards can also bridge into Fiendsmith, which actually happens a lot, and you don't need to do it the other way around. That's one complaint I hear about this variant, is that you, at least with Crystron and K9, both can bridge into each other, but for me, I don't really care about that. The Fiendsmith stuff is good enough by itself, and K9 bridging into that without losing anything is also really good. So those are the monsters for that. Onto the hand traps, and this could be debatable if this becomes truly a board breaker format, which I just don't think is going to happen personally. And of course, depending on what is being played. 3 Nib. Although Nib right now is technically considered not good because Ripper exists and all that, Imperm Nib is still good, and there's still a lot of other decks in the format right now that play into it. I find players become greedy when they just like, oh, well, they're not going to have Nib. I mean, last week when I brought Nouvelle to locals again and got 3rd, one of the reasons was because I just kept nibbing. They just don't respect it, and that's funny, but it really is a legit strategy. So there's that. 3 copies of Molcharmi Perilia. I don't like this card, but it is objectively better this format than Fualos if Vanquish Soul K9 really does become the best, which I actually have hard doubts for. Still, there's a lot of great decks that it can play into. My issue with this is I just don't like dead cards, and once you start committing, there's not really any usual way to make good use of it. But you know, if you're not playing a Molcharmy, it's gonna just affect you badly. Like, you need every card in this deck to do something for you. 3 copies of Ash standard, blah blah blah. I believe they're all different rarities, and then 3 copies of Imperm. It just does play around a lot. I can act as a pseudo board breaker because K9 can struggle to sometimes go second if they didn't get to interact and stuff, because that's where a lot of the power of K9 comes from, is being able to have those interactions available and ready. So there's that. So those are the hand trap portion. And now on to the spells. We play 3 of a case of K9. I actually really love the card artwork for this. I know there's a lot of people that don't like K9, but I love the artwork for that. I play 1 K9X Forced Release and 1 Release Restraint. So a lot of decks are only playing 1. The reason I like both is because if you can get access to it, at least, and this is in game 1, if you're not going against a blind second, you can add 2 more interactions, because not only can they reset themselves, but you now can build your board even more. Of course, in games 2 and 3, still debatable on if you need to set them all, because by that point your opponent's going to set cards. And although Harpies and stuff is not very popular in this format, I still would always respect that your opponent will have it. They can be tricky because they innately don't do anything, but they feel too good, in my opinion, to not play. And of course, you know, if depending on the matchup, you can always side one out after for game 2 or 3, depending on what's going on. But I like them. I try my best when decks come out to play as many of the cards. I really wanted to make the trap work, but the trap's just not great right now. So there's that. Also, you play 3 Fiendsmith Track to search. You can also play the trap, which I currently don't, but it is something you can add to the deck. Heck, there's even a chance I'll add it because it's so good, but even the threat of it is usually enough to deter people. So you can do that too. Psychology in this game is important. And I only currently own 1 Chaotic Elements. I would bump this up more, but it's not really the end of the world to only have 1. Because I'm also playing 3 Thrust in the main deck. The reason I'm doing it is because 1, you have great targets all around for your deck. 2, your opponent, this format is all about summoning cards and during your turn. So Thrust is almost always going to be live. The decks that refuse to do that are still going to play hand traps, so you can always set. Well, there's not really that many great in the main deck, other than like Imperm. You do have some stuff in the side, but there's a specific reason why the last ban list limited talents, and it was not for the health of the game. It was simply because triple talents would break the format. And you also play 1 talents because your opponent just enables this. This card is so good, this format, it's unbelievable. And the last card in the main deck is 1 Called by the Grave. There's just a lot of rogue and stuff, and of course it's also an easy side out as well. So that's it for the main deck right there. For the extra deck, I'm playing currently 2 copies of K917 Ripper. This could be debatable. I don't think I've perfected the extra deck yet. I like it for the most part, but we'll have to see what happens. But I do this because you need sometimes to be able to go into another Ripper, and Ripper is just a great card all around. So 2 copies of that. I also play 1 of the Hound. It saddens me that this card is super situational because it's not entirely great. To me, Hound reads if you're in the grind game and your opponent's doing stuff during the draw or standby phase, and you know you have the not forced release, but release restraint, the other K9 card, and get that, yeah, the banish effect is huge. And also not being able to use draw by card effect or battle can come up as well. But honestly, it's probably the most sideable card. And of course you play the 1 Werewolf. I haven't had really many chances to summon it because you just never get that far. At least in my play testing and online, but yeah, a crazy card if it can get onto the field. Then, of course, your rank 5s, you have Nash Knight. I'm actually not really a fan of Nash Knight because I don't like cards that have to take up other cards in the extra deck for it to work. It's the reasons why I will absolutely refuse to ever play 7th Tachyon, which I just don't think is a good card. You just limit so many of your options, and you need that in the modern game. One Valen, the super, blah, blah, blah. You have your Book of Moon card as well. And this is why I could cut to add more stuff, but it's doing all right now. You have to make some sacrifices for the Fiendsmith stuff. You have the number 106 Giant Hand for the target. I know there's better targets. I just don't have it, and I don't really care. It doesn't really ever come up for me. And Typhon. So Typhon feels also citable, but the reason you keep it is because Ryziel is still a real threat, and Detonator can still just win the game. You could summon this, and there are some niche situations where it's something that you could do to turn skip your opponent, basically, in some aspects. So you have that option. Again, I don't think the extra deck is perfected, but it plays fine. Like, I don't really have any issues with it. One Fiendsmith Desiree, one Necroquip Princess, and then you play your standard Fiendsmith package that everyone knows at this point. You just play all of it. So that's it for the extra deck, and now we go to the side. Starting off, I have the one Chaos Angel. So, since this is still very early, Chaos Angel is very good this format. And if you are going against your opponent and, certain cards, like let's say Hound will not be good because you're going to go second, and Hound's not great like that, or maybe Typhon just doesn't matter, or you need to decide maybe on Gun Day, whatever, you give the Fiendsmith option the ability to now put a lot of pressure, because your opponent is either going to assume, at this point, if you're playing K9 and they see the Fiendsmith, that you're going to go Desiree, or you're going to go into High Wave, which you're not going to go High Wave to go in second. So they're going to naturally assume you're going to go into Desiree. They're probably going to just hold off until you try to Engraver Threaten or go into Sequence. But if you go Chaos Angel, a lot of the cards right now, I don't think can actually interact or deal with Chaos Angel very well. So it's a Towers, and it's unaffected. So in my theory right now, you could just side a card in for it to help give you another going second option, which, again, K9 kind of needs that, even with the Fiendsmith stuff. 3 Drone Lockbird. Please don't stop playing this card. This card's still nuts. Especially for like the K9 variants, they need those searches because the deck costs so much to put the cards on the board. And the cards themselves are not like the Kashtira, where even if you draw the Kashtira cards, they're still boss monsters. The K9s are not that. So you have that. And sure, a lot of decks don't need to search that bad, but you have to also account for Rogue and those times where even though those decks might not, they might need to. And then also 3 copies of Lancia, because Crystron, K9, and Malice, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of cards, applications that you can still use this for. It's probably not as good, but I still think this is a must-have for the format. So those are the extra hand traps. Again, you could play Droll in the main deck and all that, but I'm more or less adjusting for locals. Now, funny cards. 3 spell cards Soul Exchange. The reason I'm playing this is because Engraver and the K9 stuff actually allow this. And if I'm not mistaken, this doesn't count towards your normal tribute summon because this is by spell. So you could actually break a board, establish, and, put more pressure that way. And it's very hard for your opponent to actually do something about this. If they tag on this stuff, cool. Well, on resolution, I'm still going to tribute summon. So it's also searchable with Thrust. And I know some of the lists in the OCG were playing it. So yeah, I have 3 Soul Exchange. 1 Harpies, because you have to still respect back row. I know Yummy has their field spells and stuff, but I mean, they're going to just OTK. But still, I would still respect it. 1 Evenly Matched. Evenly Matched, I hear, is very good this format. And to some degree, I can understand. But but you can play the 1 because you can thrust for this. And then, of course, D-Barrier. There are just some matchups where it's like, I just don't want to deal with it. You know, I know going against Yummy, I'm just going to flip Synchro and just, you know, whatever. Yeah, so those are that. And then finally, and I know this might be Cope currently, but we have Vanquish Soul a lot at my locals, so we're just going to play 2 Eye of the Truth. You could do Respect Play, but it does shut off your Jolkul, which you just don't want to do. But Eye of the Truth will just say no. It might be super specific, but even though I don't think Vanquish Soul K9 is going to be as dominant in the TCG as it is in the OCG for a plethora of reasons, I still think that deck's going to be good. I think Vanquish Soul Pure might actually make a comeback. There is a chance for that, but more or less, it's goofy. I'm willing to try. I don't care if this is bad. I don't care how situational or whatnot. You know, I don't want to deal with it. So, yeah, it may not be searchable, but if you just draw it, whatever. It'll help out, and it'll give them a bad time. But yeah, that's currently my K9 Fiendsmith deck profile for Justice Hunters. I will be giving this a go and to see if this is a truly viable option. Again, I've tested Crystron, I've looked into Cyber Dragon, I've looked into Vanquish Soul K9. I just like this. You know, I get to make use of Fiendsmith, which, just to clarify, I do not like in Bell, but I do like in general. But yeah, the cards feel fine. And the K9 stuff, being able to bridge into Fiendsmith and, you know, still plus, feels pretty good. I guess I could do a test hand just to kind of show off what I mean by that. So, y'all have to let me know what your thoughts are on this new format. Personally, I think it's okay. I did a post not too long ago, and yeah, I'm gonna be straight up. I have doubts that these new decks are actually gonna be as good as Ryzeal or Malice were at their full power. That's why I'm convinced the next ban list is going to just obliterate. Even if the new decks are doing fine, the old decks give a run for their money. I do think there is a huge chance that Mitsurugi just gets obliterated. I don't think Fiendsmith will get obliterated because that deck, the engine is falling off. But Ryzeal, Malice, even though Malice is struggling, I'm still convinced it's going to just happen. So, you know, it's nice to have options. For your, just trying to get a hand to show what you can do with the K9 to go into. Okay, that's fine. So, minus tracked. We'll just get... not a great time for it. Okay, fine. We'll get a brick. We'll have Mole Charming Perillia. So, with a hand like this, you can bridge very easily into the Fiendsmith stuff. So, we'll use that to go into a Jolkul. And Theory. So, we'll get that there. Here, let me just scoot that right there so you can just see where everything is. We're going to reveal this and this. Special out both. You're going to want to use the effects of these. Depending on what your hand looks like. Because this kind of matters. If you're not opening chaotic elements, let's say you just hard to have these. You want to still respect roll. So go for what you need. In this case, for this hand, I'm going to use Jolkul to search for a Lantern. And I would still mostly go with Lantern because you already have ways to get Azuna. So it's not prudent that you get that. And then, of course, we'll use Lantern to grab a case for K9, which will be important here in a moment. But now that we have two monsters, we go full Fiendsmith. This shouldn't really surprise anyone, but I'll just show what you can do. So now we go into that. We have 2+ cards in hand, which that feels really good, by the way. Being able to just keep that and, you know, now you just get to basically deal with your opponent's cards. Like, if they hand trapped before, now your Fiendsmith line is just pretty much going to most likely be uninterrupted if they burned a hand trap or two. So now we're going to use Lacrima to dump. We'll use the effect of Requiem to equip. Use that. Send both to special out the Necroclip Princess and the nice rarity. That's not a common. And then we'll use Engraver. It doesn't matter what you shuffle back, but I'm just going to do Moon. The special out here. So now your opponent has to nib, which, of course, experts are saying don't play nib this format. So, okay, obviously, yeah, you can't really bank on them not doing that, but still, because it's not played, now you have High Wave King Caesar. And the reason you get the Lantern is because now that you've done all that, now you can do Lantern to target. I just like to do a different name instead of just doing another. It doesn't really matter. But now you can go into K917 Ripper, detach 1 to search. Now, since we already have a case for K9, this is where my theory of being able to play the others is fine. You could search for Forced Release or the other, but since we already have Release Restraint, that's fine. Now, I'm actually going to play case for K9 now to search. And the card that I'm going to grab because I have Azuna is going to be Lantern again for next turn. Because you need follow-up badly in this deck, even though you'll put everything out. So now we would set Forced Release and Release Restraint in theory again. And if we had a better hand trap, like let's say that was Ash, Troll, Ogre, whatnot, we have that. Azuna in hand, follow up with Lantern. If we were playing the trap card, we have the double negate engraved or hand, special out, special and pop, and of course with your extra deck lineup, you have Valiant, you have a Hound, technically, you have the Werewolf that you can go into to hand rip, Nash Knight. So yeah, it's pretty solid end board that you can make format wise. And like I said, you already have follow up next turn. And you know, if you drew into thrust and talents and stuff in a mirror match, you could use talents to take, like let's say they make a Ripper, you could just detach from Ripper to get +2 basically. So that really feels nice in a deck like this. And of course, the Fiendsmith stuff is recyclable for the most part. And by that point, you can start going to Desiree, and Desiree can out the rest of the board. And yeah, so Fiendsmith also gives that grind that K9 does not naturally have. Because about the only things that you're really going to be able to re-get back are these quick play spells, which you burn through your extra deck very quickly. So you have to just kind of keep that in mind if you want to play a variant like this, because K9 does not have the grind game. It's actually the thing that I think was missing with the second wave of support, is K9 does not have any way to get cards back. Like, they needed something like Risial Cross, obviously not like a monster negate, but just a way to put cards back, because the thing that hurts the most currently with just playing pure K9 in general is you burn through all your cards, but once you lose it, you just can't play. And obviously, yes, that's situational, because most games are over in 1 to 2, maybe 3 turns, but and especially in a format that we're entering right now where you're going to just be interacting crazily, so it's a matter of out-interacting your opponent and stuff, but still, other than that, the Fiendsmith stuff does give that extra grind, and of course, like I said, you don't care about Fiendsmith going into K9 Fiendsmith can carry its own and it helps with a few issues, but K9 going to Fiendsmith feels good because, I just showed you a combo where, you can just grab Lantern and just plus off that, but you bait hand traps and board breakers and stuff like that. And also, you could just do your standard Joel Cool into Lantern and, whether you want to use those effects immediately or not, there's actually a realm where you might not want to activate those effects yet because if you have another way to have Lantern or search for it, unless you want to bait hand traps, you can just go into the Fiendsmith stuff and then bait them there and then just set up. Because again, even if we don't have the Fiendsmith stuff here, it's still solid. I mean, you still get in technical interruption engrave. Again, if you're playing the trap, which again I might put in, but still, I think it's a very solid deck list. I don't think it's the best K9 variant. Because again, Fiendsmith is just a tad power crept, and you have to make a lot of liberties with the extra deck, but I quite enjoy it, and I definitely will be playing around because I do think K9 ultimately is more fun. That's very biased, but to me, I don't like Draco Tail because it feels like Fusion Slop and Yummy. I just don't like the artwork. I'm sorry, I have to say it. I'm one of the few people that just doesn't dig that artwork. I think it's just a little but that's erroneous. That doesn't matter. But let me know what y'all think about the deck profile. If there's massive improvements that can be made, or are you experimenting with K9? What are your thoughts on the format? Is this cope? Is this fun? What? I also just like to say around the same time too, the Zodiac video that I put out before, I cannot fathom why it has so many views. I was so afraid to put that out because I was legitimately thinking to myself, this is crap. Like, everyone knows this. I'm speaking nonsense. I didn't play 2017. What would I know about the format? But I was very thankful for all the views and the likes that video got. I was truly humbled by that. So thank you for watching and thank you for the support. I'm definitely going to keep trying to post more because I really do appreciate the little fandom and that, just the being able to give something back to the community. Whether it's good content or bad, it just feels nice to be able to do that. So thank you all for watching.